Hi everyone, Tony from Hack the Movies here, and before evil died tonight, evil found its way home in Halloween Resurrection. We're going to talk about this what I'm sure is just a universally loved sequel, but not the actual film. If you want to see me talk about that, I will be reviewing it on Movie Dumpster. My good friends Movie Dumpster had me on as a guest, and we will be reviewing Halloween Resurrection, the actual film. Today, we are talking about the Workprint of Halloween Resurrection, aka Halloween the Homecoming, which is what it was originally called, which actually the tagline, Evil Finds Its Way Home, is kind of fits more with Halloween Homecoming than it does Resurrection, but whatever. Now, there are two workprints of this floating around. One of them is pretty well covered on moviecensorship.com. They have a good breakdown of it. I usually plug those guys. I do watch all the workprints, but they're actually good if I miss things. I use them as a source all the time. If you want to know about the Halloween, the Homecoming cut, check that out. I want to focus on the other workprint because I've seen deleted scenes from this workprint before, but I couldn't find like a good breakdown of the first workprint. I'm sure it's out there. If you can find a good breakdown that gives you everything, let me know. I was not able to find it in my usual sources. But yes, some of these scenes you've probably seen. Real grainy on YouTube. Spoiler, they're still real grainy in this. So the Halloween, the Homecoming, it's basically Halloween Resurrection. Just has a different ending, I think, and a tacked on beginning. Whatever was in that appears in this edit too, but this edit has so much more. It was definitely earlier. It doesn't have a title. There was no title in this edit. I couldn't believe that. So yeah, let's talk about Halloween, whatever this was going to be called, workprint version. And shout out as always to my good friend Tyler Yost, who sent both of these to me. He wasn't sure the difference between them, and now he'll know, just as you're about to find out. So it starts off with the home video of the Myers family. You've probably seen this before. I remember this leaking online years ago. It's actually pretty cool and creepy. But if you think about it, all the family stuff with Michael Myers is done in like the first 10 minutes. So having a whole family-oriented opening doesn't really work with the rest of the film. And I can understand why they cut it out. Unless they wanted to say, hey, let's set up the Myers house. But you don't really need it. So I understand them cutting this out. Unfortunately, the actual film has no cool opening. So that's one of the down parts. But yeah, it's here. It's here. And I don't know if it was ever released on the deleted scenes. I don't think it was. But this has been floating around for years and years and years and years. And just a heads up. The sound effects and music were not finalized in this cut, and they use a lot of very generic stock sound effects. Don't get the idea that this was ever intended to be in the final product, but they're pretty funny because it's sound effects you've heard before.
She decapitated a man.
So the opening with the nurses going to Laurie's room is a little bit longer. And I kid you not, they make a Three Stooges joke.
Dr. Howard said 50 milligrams of Zyprexa twice a day.
No, dear, he said 5 milligrams. And it's Dr. Fine. Dr. Howard has curly hair.
Right.
Calling Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard.
Get it.
Calling Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard.
They added more dialogue to the security guards that Michael kills. And actually, in this version, you get to see the first security guard go up to Michael Myers, thinking it's one of the patients. In the theatrical cut, they just do a hard cut to him screaming.
What's gotten into you?
The second guard's death is totally different. He never opens up the washing machine, and he never finds his partner's corpse. Also, Michael pops up behind him and just stabs him. I'm guessing they thought this was too tame, so they went back and reshot it so they could add in more gore, and they wanted to add in the one-armed pull-up, lower down move that he did in H2O. They were real proud of that one-arm pull. I guess it's a pull down. One-arm pull down that Michael Myers did, and they had to bring it back for this one. Michael in this version is able to burst through Laurie's door in one go. There's no awkward digital camera shake like there is in the theatrical cut. Also in this version, he examines her bed a little bit longer, and the scene's accompanied by the voices of singing children. So in this version, Laurie falls onto concrete, I think. They even cut to her body laying flat just to show you that she's dead afterwards. You can still see a wire attached to Jamie Lee Curtis, so I'm wondering if that actually was concrete. Was that just like a crash pad, and it was always intended to be covered up with trees like it is in the final cut? I'm not sure. Again, it's really poor quality. So I'm gonna guess that was a mat she landed on, and they threw in trees digitally, and that was the way it was always intended. Or they threw in the trees to cover up her body to give you the idea that maybe she'll come back one day. But as we all know, this was the last time Jamie Lee Curtis would ever play Laurie Strode, and she would never, ever come back. Halloween Ends comes out tomorrow. Immediately after killing his sister, which took him like over 20 years, Michael wanders into the woods, and he sees a guy getting a blowjob from some chick in a tent. The previous movie was directed by a Jason guy, and it didn't get anywhere near as Jason as this. I guess one thing that sets it apart is Michael doesn't actually kill them. He just takes off on that cool car and drives away. And the girl's upset because it's her boyfriend's car. The guy she was blowing was not her boyfriend.
My boyfriend's gonna kill me. Oh, he loves that car.
So then there's a whole scene where Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks, their characters Freddie and Nora, are properly introduced into the film. And they're on a daytime talk show, and they're explaining what Dangertainment is, what the show is going to be. And then they properly introduce the characters who we're going to be following throughout the rest of the film. This was all cut out in the other versions of Halloween Resurrection. There's a longer scene with Deckard and his friend in their room. And it's funny, you can see that they didn't have any images for the computer yet, so there's just a green placeholder. That's always fun to see when you watch these kinds of cuts. There's an extended scene of the contestants actually talking to each other and getting to know each other, which I think was pretty nice. All the guys are really, really horny. And another thing I like, and I think this was one of the official deleted scenes they did release, is Tyra Banks not understanding what Donna is saying. I thought that was pretty funny. Her reaction to Donna just rambling philosophically is actually pretty funny. Then there's a scene of Jen convincing Sarah to stay in the contest because Sarah doesn't want to do it anymore. And she pretty much begs her to stay on the show so they could do it together, and that wins her over. Very different than the theatrical cut, and I actually agree with the theatrical cut, because in that cut, Sarah goes to Freddie to tell her she wants to quit, and Freddie is the one who ends up making her stay. That makes Freddie a stronger character. And also in that scene is when we see Freddie really loves Kung Fu films. And this establishes why he is so good at Kung Fu later on in the film. If they had not included this earlier scene, when it got to the part where Busta Rhymes does Kung Fu, everyone would have thought it was ridiculous, and they would have totally rejected the idea of that existing in a Halloween movie. But luckily, they watched this, they realized they made a mistake, and they went back and they added in the setup for the Kung Fu, and now the movie's flawless. Let's move on. So this deleted scene actually is on the DVD and Blu-ray, and it's actually funnier on the DVD and Blu-ray because that's when the sound was finally finished. Michael pulls up in his nice little sports car. I forget what kind of car it is. I'm sorry. And he locks the door of his car. So you see Michael in front of the house with the Halloween theme playing, and you just hear... That's not in the Workprint version. Or maybe it is. I don't know. It's not the best copy. It's a really old VHS rip, and it got all messed up during this part. So I like this scene. It plays off mostly the same as the theatrical version, where Sarah gets scared because she thinks she's seen Michael Myers. But in this version, they make a point to see Sarah recognizing the red car driving away. And we, as the audience, now know who that car belongs to, because it was established in this version. So we know that Michael actually is stalking her. So she's justified for being scared and hallucinating him and whatnot. And again, it feels like the original movie with Michael stalking the girls ahead of the killings. I actually kind of like that. For whatever reason, they cut out so much of the car in the theatrical version. And we'll get to, I'll just skip ahead. When they do get to the house and she sees the car being towed away, it has more impact in this version because she saw it earlier. And it has more impact for us because we know whose car that is. In the theatrical version, Tyra Banks is just like, oh, there's a car parked out front. I got it towed. And it's like, was that Michael's car? I don't know. But it's set up a lot better in this. Also, in this version, when Donna says cameras are phallic, the character Jim starts pretending the camera is his dick. And Busta Rhymes is not having any of this shit. He hates all these guys. So the establishing shot for the Myers house still has a giant blue screen behind it, which I thought was pretty cool. I like that when you watch these work prints because it's before it gets finished. You get to see how they did certain things. I didn't even realize. I watched this in 4K the other day. I didn't even realize that background behind the garage was digital. It's seamless. It wasn't until I watched this version that I realized that it actually was all digital. In addition to temporary music and sound, there's also temporary songs. I don't think Janet Jackson's song was ever going to make it into the final cut of Halloween Resurrection, but it exists here. Actually, the song in the movie sort of sounds like a Janet Jackson song. There's a lot more Deckard and his friend in this, which makes sense if you know what the alternate ending is. So they have to establish him a little bit more, and they actually show him and his friend riding their bikes to the party. I thought that was adorable. I kind of wish that was in the movie because that is pretty funny. There's some flirting between Bill and Jen that's actually kind of cringe, and I understand them cutting it. The jump scare from the house to the party doesn't work as well in this version. In this version, the jump scare starts on Michael Myers' childhood chair, and then it jumps to the guy at the party with the mask. I like it better in the theatrical cut when the camera zooms over and Michael's there with a bloody knife. And you think like, oh, are we going to see Michael Myers' face? And then it cuts. I think that works better. I mean, the jump scare is stupid. But, I mean, if you're going to have it, at least the version that they landed on was the better version than this. Also, I'm pretty sure when the kids are leaving the pumpkin on the doorstep, I think the music is from the remake of House on Haunted Hill. And I've seen that movie a trillion times. So that's why I know it's probably the music from House on Haunted Hill. Fun fact, I have a review of House on Haunted Hill, but YouTube kept claiming it and taking it down. So it's not on YouTube. But if you listen to our podcast feed, you can hear our review of House on Haunted Hill. Or if you go to Odyssey, you can watch it. All the missing episodes. Actually, this time last year is when YouTube was copywriting my videos, and then I would try to edit it out and they would glitch and whatnot. All those missing episodes are over on Odyssey. But anyway, back to Halloween Resurrection. So in this version, there is no close-up to Jen's bra when she's starting to take her shirt off, which actually backs up Katie Sackhoff's complaint that they got a body double for that because she refused to take her shirt off. And she's still bitter about it to this day. But yeah, I wasn't sure. I remember her saying that. I'm like, is that true? But yeah, if you watch it, she never gets the shirt all the way up. And in the final cut, when she pulls her shirt down, you can tell it's not all the way up. So yeah, they used a body double. I'm sorry if you thought you were seeing Katie Sackhoff's boobs in a bra. You weren't. You were just seeing someone else's. Do with that information what you will. So Bill's death is very, very different in this version. If you remember the theatrical cut, Bill, says something to the mirror and Michael bursts through the mirror and grabs him. Then it cuts back to Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks. And then when it cuts back to the murder scene, Michael is suddenly in the bathroom standing up. He got in there really, really quick, almost as if he teleported in there, and he has no wall residue on him at all. And then he stabs him through the top of the head. So how it is in the Workprint version, he does the thing where he mocks the mirror, and then he bumps into Michael, who's already standing in the bathroom. And then he stabs Bill a bunch of times and then wanders off. I could tell they watched this and they were like, this isn't exciting enough. We need more. The beginning and the ending of this death scene need to be punched up a little bit. So they added him bursting through the wall and they added him stabbing the top of the head. But yeah, it is this funny issue now because it's like, how did he get into the bathroom? And I'm actually glad I watched this because I remembered and I had to hunt down the trailer. This was in one of the very first teasers or trailers, the shot of him turning around and bumping into Michael. I was always wondering whatever happened to that scene. There's a whole extended scene of them exploring Michael's room And then Sarah screams and her friend calls her out for screaming way too much, which is actually pretty funny. It's one of the few times the movie gets self-aware, but it didn't make the final cut. It would have been nice to have had it in the actual film. And then we get Tyra Banks' death scene. Now, everyone knew this existed. There were so many stills of Michael coming up behind Tyra. And then when the movie came out, rightfully so, everyone was like, where was the Tyra Banks death scene? Why would you put such a big actress, well, such a big celebrity in the film and then not show their death scene? It was really, really bizarre. But yeah, it exists. She's basically looking at the camera, wondering what's going wrong with it. Michael puts a cable around her neck. She thinks it's Freddie. She finds out the hard way it is not Freddie. He basically picks her up and strangles her until her arms go limp. And then I think it's implied he's like cutting her up and slicing and dicing her guts or something. I guess that's why she's bleeding out later in the movie when she's hung up. Yeah, for whatever reason they cut it out. I think they just wanted a scene where someone was already dead and someone discovers a body, which is fun. They do it in the other movies, and I agree it probably should have, something like that should have been in this film, but not for Tyra Banks. Not for Tyra Banks. Okay, this next part is the funniest goddamn thing. This movie was clearly supposed to be a comedy, I feel, and that's why I can never really hate this movie, because I don't think it's taking itself seriously, to be honest. I don't think it wants you to think this is a scary movie. It's just having fun. And this original death scene for Donna kind of proves that. In the theatrical cut, she's running in the tunnel and there's like a bent piece of metal that's like a spike. And Michael struggles with her for a little bit and impales her on it. In this version, the original version, she sees Michael and just takes off running in the dark and impales herself. Michael didn't even touch her. She just ran right into that spike and killed herself. I'm guessing a producer saw that and went, no, we can't have someone kill themselves in a freaking Halloween movie. Can you please go back and have like Michael kill her? That's what I think happened. So they completely reshot the scene to make it look like Michael's the one who killed her instead of her running into the spike by herself. I think they should have left that in. That's hilarious. And then there's a scene that's not as hilarious. Jen's head getting cut off is a lot quicker in this one. It's also got a more noticeable dummy. It just cuts to a dummy that's not moving at all. I'm guessing that wasn't cool enough for them. So they went back and they reshot more angles of her head being sliced off and cut up. And they have that angle that's right on Katie Sackhoff's, and you see Michael, it's like from Michael's point of view, slicing her neck. So yeah, apparently the head cut off was already kind of out there for a Michael Myers kill, especially when it's a knife. It's just a regular butcher knife cutting the head off. But I guess they thought they weren't going far enough and they made it even more ridiculous in the final product. Whereas here, the knife head cut off was much more tame and realistic. So the movie is pretty much the same until they kick Michael out the window. Now in the theatrical, they're still in the house and they get a message from Deckard saying he's alive, he's in the house. And then Michael stabs Busta Rhymes' Freddy and knocks him out for most of the movie until that amazing battle at the end. In this version, they leave the house. They notice that Michael has cut the cord that was hanging him. And then Michael jumps off top of the roof onto Freddy and starts strangling Freddy until Sarah hits him with a board and then she runs away. And Michael, I guess he assumes Freddy's dead, the final nightmare. He assumes Freddy's dead and takes off after Sarah. Yeah, completely different. And during this scene, because of the ending we're about to get, they have to show Deckard leaving the Halloween party and riding his little bicycle to the Myers house, which I thought was pretty funny. Now, inside the garage, Michael, for some reason, he just decides to start slicing the cables. He realizes she's watching him because he's looking at the monitors and he's like, I'm going to kill these monitors by slicing these cables. And then he just gets stuck and electrocuted. And then she's the one to pull out the big cable and throw it on the blood and basically fry him. I'm guessing they thought that wasn't interesting enough. So they went back and for the final cut, added in her coming out with the chainsaw, the fire starting earlier, and then Michael sitting up after the fire. And then it's still all the versions end up with Sarah getting stuck in the fire. Now, in this version, she is rescued by Deckard. Her love interest, Deckard, saves the day, picks her up, and takes her out. And that sucked. I know it makes sense story-wise, but it's not fun to watch. So luckily, some genius was like, no. Bring Busta Rhymes back. He's going to have a rematch with Michael where he wins this time. So we got more kung fu. We got more action. And we've got one of the best taglines of all time. I'm wearing a shirt dedicated to it right now.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
I mean, they put that in the trailers and shit. So this was the best decision they could have made. Even if it did screw up the narrative of her and Deckard. And now that ending feels a little weird and hollow in the final product. We got 2 Busta Rhymes fight scenes and the greatest Halloween quote of all time. Perfect. Thank God they changed it. Thank God they changed it and fixed this. But since this is the Deckard ending, he does apologize for lying about his age. And he tells her that he is not the guy from Blade Runner. And he is, in fact, a person named Miles. And then Freddy, turns out he survived in this version. Well, he survives in all the versions. But in this version, he's on a stretcher and he's got a neck brace on. He could barely talk because he was strangled. And he apologizes to her like, I can't believe I would take it all back. Oh, my God. And they cart him away. And then Miles is just like, wow, you killed the boogeyman. And then there's a flash of Michael's face for no reason. And Sarah goes, you can't kill the boogeyman. Then the Halloween theme plays as the camera pulls out awkwardly. It's not as suspenseful as the ending from the first one where it's like, he's still out there. It's just not a very interesting ending. It's really weak. The whole thing is really, really weak, which is why this movie has so many endings. Now the other Workprint, the more popular one, that uses the ending where it's later in the night, the garage is totally burnt down, and a forensic officer is examining the crime scene, and Michael pops out of the tunnel. That one was on the Blu-rays, obviously, and the DVDs. Then there's the real ending, of course, where they cart Michael off, and then he wakes up in the morgue. Then there's another ending that is in none of the cuts, where Michael wakes up for a second and tries to grab Freddy, and then Sarah plants an axe in his brain. That was also on the DVD and Blu-ray. It's weird what they kept for the DVD and Blu-ray deleted scenes and what has never come out officially. I have the new Scream Factory version, and it still has the same deleted scenes from back in the day. I don't know why they've never gone back and actually released them officially, but they are here in this Workprint. So I hope you enjoyed this Workprint review. Like I said, if you want to know more about the little details of the Homecoming Workprint, check out moviecensorship.org. They got some good stuff there. And if you want to see what I have to say about the rest of Halloween Resurrection, subscribe to Movie Dumpster and see what I say on their channel. And finally, I have so much Halloween content on this channel, and we're almost done with it. What did we do? We did the Halloween 2 TV cut. I've done a Halloween H2O TV cut review and talked about how ridiculous those two are. We did a best Halloween 2 episode. That was a lot of fun. We picked the 3 films that are considered Halloween 2 and picked the best one. I did a every injury of Michael Myers in the current continuity video. Before you watch Halloween Kills, go back and watch that video to see every injury he's gotten so far in the current continuity. And of course, we did the Halloween in 5 minutes parody video. Had a lot of fun making that. A lot of work went into that. And thank you everyone who watched it. Subscribe, check out our Halloween playlist. Listen to our podcast every Monday and watch it every Monday. We premiere episodes on Monday and then they're up. We talk about movies new and old. We have a playlist for that. We have multiple playlists for episodes. And I think you'll enjoy that. And of course, lastly, the Patreon and YouTube channel memberships. Check those out. We have a lot of great content for you guys to see. And we have a lot more on the way. Happy Halloween. Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out our other videos and Patreon page.